In the early 1970s, Anneliese Michel, a young woman from Leibelfing, Germany, became the subject of one of the most controversial and tragic exorcism cases in history. Born on September 21, 1952, Anneliese was raised in a devoutly Catholic family. She was known for her deep religious faith and her aspirations to become a teacher. However, her life took a dark turn during her teenage years, leading to a series of events that would end in tragedy. Early life and initial symptoms. Anneliese Michel was a bright and lively girl who grew up in a pious environment. Her family attended church regularly, and Anneliese herself was dedicated to her faith. However, at the age of 16, she experienced her first seizure. She was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy, a disorder that can cause seizures, memory loss, and hallucinations. Prescribed anti-seizure medication, Anneliese's condition did not improve. She began to experience depression and psychosis. She reported seeing disturbing visions and hearing voices that condemned her to hell. These experiences were deeply distressing and led her to believe that she was possessed by demons. Seeking spiritual help, Anneliese and her family sought help from the Catholic Church. They believed that her condition was not purely medical but also spiritual. Anneliese became increasingly convinced that she was possessed by multiple demons. Her behavior became more erratic, and she exhibited signs of extreme distress. She would rip off her clothes, perform hundreds of genuflections kneeling and rising, and drink her own urine. She also began to exhibit an aversion to religious objects such as crucifixes and holy water. The first exorcism session. After numerous requests, the church finally granted permission for an exorcism. Father Ernst Alt and Father Arnold Renz were assigned to perform the rites. The first exorcism session took place on September 24, 1975. During this session, Anneliese exhibited disturbing behaviors. She spoke in multiple voices, including those of the demons who claimed to possess Lucifer, Judas Iscariot, Nero, Cain, Hitler. Anneliese's voice would change dramatically, and she would speak in languages she had never learned. Her strength became superhuman, often requiring several people to restrain her. Throughout these sessions, she would curse, blaspheme, and exhibit violent behavior. The grueling exorcism sessions. Over the next 10 months, Anneliese underwent 67 exorcism sessions, each lasting up to 4 hours. These sessions were physically and emotionally exhausting for her and everyone involved. The priests followed the Ritual Romanum, a book of rituals used by the Catholic Church, including the rite of exorcism. Anneliese would often scream, convulse, and thrash about violently. She claimed that the demons were fighting for control of her soul. Despite the exorcisms, her condition did not improve. She continued to refuse food and water, believing that the demons would not allow her to eat. Her physical health deteriorated rapidly, and she became severely emaciated. The role of her family. Anneliese's parents, deeply religious and desperate to save their daughter, supported the exorcisms. They believed that the only way to rid Anneliese of the demons was through the exorcism rites. Her mother, Anna, was particularly devoted and often participated in the sessions, praying and providing comfort to her daughter. The family's home in Klingenberg am Maine became the center of these intense spiritual battles. Friends and neighbors were aware of the situation but were largely kept at a distance. The Michel family's faith and determination to save Anneliese from what they believed to be demonic possession drove them to continue the exorcisms despite her worsening condition. Physical and mental deterioration. Anneliese's physical condition deteriorated drastically. She refused to eat, believing that the demons inside her would not allow it. Her body became emaciated, and she suffered from dehydration and malnutrition. She bore bruises, wounds, and other marks of self-inflicted harm, convinced that she needed to suffer for the sins of others. Despite the intense suffering, Anneliese continued to pray fervently, seeking salvation and relief from her torment. The final days. Just by June 1976, Anneliese's condition was critical. She was extremely thin, weak, and unable to walk or talk properly. Despite this, she remained steadfast in her faith and believed that she was suffering for the sins of others. She reportedly told her family that she wanted to atone for the sins of the world, particularly for the wayward youth and priests. On June 30, 1976, Anneliese had her last exorcism session. She was extremely weak and could barely move. She made one final request to her priests and family, asking for absolution. The next morning, on July 1, 1976, Anneliese Michel died in her home. She was only 23 years old. The official cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration. The aftermath and legal battle. Anneliese Michel's death led to a sensational court case. Her parents and the two priests, Father Alt and Father Renz, were charged with negligent homicide. The trial began in March 1978 and attracted widespread media attention. It was one of the first cases in German legal history to involve the religious defense of exorcism. The defense argued that Anneliese had willingly undergone the exorcisms and had refused medical treatment. They claimed that she had the right to reject medical help and that her actions were based on her deep religious beliefs. The prosecution, however, argued that the priests and parents were responsible for her death due to their failure to seek proper medical care. Medical experts testified that Anneliese's symptoms were consistent with epilepsy and severe psychological disorders, not possession. They argued that her condition could have been managed with appropriate medical treatment. The court ultimately found the parents and priests guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence. They were sentenced to 6 months in jail, reduced to probation, and a fine. Legacy and controversy. The story of Anneliese Michel remains a haunting and controversial chapter in the history of exorcisms. It raises profound questions about the intersection of faith and medicine, the power of belief, and the tragic consequences of untreated mental illness. Anneliese's grave in Klingenberg am Main has become a pilgrimage site for many who believe in her sanctity, while others see her story as a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious extremism and neglecting proper medical care. The exorcism of Anneliese Michel continues to inspire books, documentaries, and films, including the 2005 movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Her story serves as a chilling reminder of the fine line between faith and fanaticism, and the devastating impact that ignorance and superstition can have on vulnerable individuals.